to be as they come up, but I put them in order of the number of the slides. And it was probably when I was living up at the industrial lot in Tucson before I moved to headquarters down to where I am now. That took 4 years of moving. So, but I want to go over this. I got about 2, maybe 3 frames to wire. I've already got a wired one that I tightened. One I can put on wire of my own. Chris brought in 3 from what she had. One that's already got it in with the data pre-wired stuff that really needs the horizontal. And then, except that the frames need to have, the other 2 need to have the bad foundation taken out and the nail holes opened up so it can be rewired. And we'll see where that goes. Other than that, it's Bruce talking, and then when Bruce is done, we're out of here, except I gotta load all the stuff back on my truck. And so different ones that were trying to get stuff out earlier, like Michael Bush was with his books, I told him, no, you can't load, because when I brought them, they were on one of those red carts. They weren't on the back of the truck, and I don't want to have to take them back off the truck, back in here to get the other stuff loaded to get stuff on. Anyway, I don't know what we're going to look at here, but it's, I think it says 1992 on the slides, so this is going back a ways. And it's probably when I converted from the smaller under-bottom pollen traps that only did about 10 pounds to these bigger ones that would do 20 pounds and 3 draws full would fill a 5-gallon pail. So, where we were up in Tucson with the headquarters on the lot that built up, that burned up in 2000, where you could see the flames 350, 400 feet, even down here, even down to Arivaca where I lived. And they had every fire department in Tucson and the surrounding counties in, because I was in the center industrial park with this, with all the boxes on an acre. There was enough fat and about 6 tons of wax in the back building. This is where the main oil pumping stations and big tanks are for the gasoline in Tucson. They were afraid if that lot exploded and those big gasoline tanks exploded as wide as this building and up, that they had a problem in Tucson and going into the neighborhoods for a few miles. So everybody freaked out. But anyway, this is the entrance to the industrial lot that I talk about that we had, that had 8-foot chain link fence with barbed wire on top, where we did the we teach and show how to make honey supers, how to make pollen traps, how to do frames, how to do foundation, how to do queen rearing, because there were about 17 hives on the place. And from the 90s on, finally in 97, everything stopped. And that's as much as I'm going to say on that. But anyway, this is the entrance in, and that vehicle right there is still down at my place where I'm not going to say how the thing over the engine got off and it got vandalized. Anyway, it was just stacks and stacks of boxes for close to 2 acres. Wow. And because we had enough equipment to do well over 2,000 highs, 5 and 6 feet tall. And we processed enough foundation where I was teaching got the day dance and some moon, to do the foundation and that. Other than that, I had an assembly line that do 6,000 pounds of beeswax a week, and I barely had 6,000 pounds to do 1 week, so I was doing it by hand with the embossing rollers. That's maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks dipping, but I couldn't see putting the assembly line together that matches what Davian has that supplies the whole USA, and it is 4.9 size, and I still, when we moved down to where the ranch is at now, it took me 4 years to move everything, 2002 to 2006. Got done in the spring, it died in the fall, and that's all I'm going to say there in politics. But I've got my assembly line down there that you can't buy out of Poland under, well, let's put it this way, it's money. And then I've got where we used to do queen rearing, and I had 2 incubators with humidifiers, dehumidifiers for ice and that, like to do seeds and everything else, or eggs and all that. That would do 10, 12,000 queen cells a week. I had 2 of those great big, of the length of this table and high. And they're expensive as hell. The humidifiers, freezers, and heaters and all that. But I managed to move them down there. But I can't work it by myself, so, and then I still got a lot of the equipment. What's out in the field, like what's on here, where we shook down, which is what freaked all the migratory out, saying it's too costly to do it with Mendes and ADs and Powers and the rest of them. Where we had 2 acres here down at my place, I still got big rows of equipment. And then out in the field, I'm still bulk stacked with stuff, blue trash back in 84, 85. And what boxes are good. I mean, I got equipment the rest of my life. It's just, reconditioning it, having the beeswax, making your own foundation, redoing the frames that they say trash, well, it's salvageable, how. And got everything I want, and it's just, I've only got 2 hands. Anyway, enough said. This is at the industrial lot there in 92. By 2000, the place was burnt to the ground. But we got out alive, and they're going to pay for it before it's done. Anyway, this is pollen traps here, bulk, where I build pollen traps, and then I put the designs at beesource.com. You'll see under point of view, you'll see the pollen trap plans for free, how to build them. That's sold by Sundance and all the rest of them. That, a little bit modified, a little bit smaller, so you're off 15%, you can do whatever you do when you see what a person's doing. But that's all pollen traps there, and we had well over 800 pollen traps in use and maybe another 400 or 500 in reserve. And then we show them work classes on how to build all that stuff. And as for that pedestal that's on the top, besides growing up in agriculture, and my dad as a head nurse for the military with World War II, I grew up making molds, and I owned Lifetime Concrete that made all the benches, bird baths, ornamental cement in southern Arizona for 15 years that I did, making the injection molds and stuff myself. So when I say slam dunk, making foundation, making these plates like Sun Ki Moon and that, I was telling them what I wanted done, how to do it, the specifications, how to do the plastic injection molding, because I did that making molds, and I grew up working with latex, Voltex, and then fiberglass. And I've been Well, I've always worked for myself. I've never, I've been self-employed. Other than that, I did odd work for putting Tucson College of Business together, Peanut Community College together. And then every now and then the government would hire me for a few months to go in and audit the state places around the state to see if they were doing the paperwork right. So I know what lab work and files, because that's what I did in the military. Anyway, that's pollen traps there. And if you count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to a stack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 to 35, and then you go back row after row after row. Big deal. Okay, this is opening up where I said I had hives there at the lot, where I show them what bees look like, spaced right, so you didn't have all that work home and brace. This is opening a hive up there, looking down, taking a picture, and there's the small black bees we used to do that everyone's wanted patent rights on, and yet when I sold bees, I had a contract with people that were into that, and if they sold anything and said they did it, that was my race, my strain, that Koniger and Rutger and all them analyzed, showed was true this, and that, down to the wing veins and the clips on the wings for attaching and that. And I used to teach all that. But anyway, you look down at the top, that's what a hive's supposed to look like, between boxes with no burr comb, no brace comb. You might see a little propolis, a little on burr, but when it's spaced properly, you don't have all that stuff to cut out like many do because it's spaced wrong.
See, that box has 9 frames in it, so when you've got 9 frames in a box, which way does
That's 10.
10.
Oh, is it 10?
Yeah, it's 10.
The Lord love it.
Okay. Hey,
Okay.
Dee.
Here we go again with proper spacing. See a little burr comb on the one, 5 from the right. See that little tiny bit in the center, about this long and this high? And to me, that's a lot of burr comb. I spaced it wrong.
What spacing do you use?
It's the same as Langstroth will talk about. It's the same space between the combs sideways is the same space you use between the upper and lower boxes.
So less than 3/8 of an inch?
And so when you cut the frame rest, which is most of the problem, most of the time, you have to learn to cut it right with the frames, how long they hang down from the top box, and then looking at it, make sure it's no more than the same spacing that Langstroth talked about, between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch.
5/16.
And then the bees can go around, can go up through the boxes, they got it. But you don't have burr comb and you match nature more for going up and down without all the junk that's in the hives. Today when you open the box and says, oh, this is a great university hive, look how strong, you see all this burr comb stuff, and I go, ha, 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 ha. Again, see my burr comb? That to me is bad. Other people, oh no, that's nothing. You know what I mean? That to me is bad burr comb. But still, I'm looking at it, the outside 2 or 3 is more with stores. The center, where you're seeing more of these, which is center frames that are lighter, is the newer stuff. Then they're drawn out, going to the smaller 4.9, and that's where you see the bees more. And you can see the heavy smoke I blew. That's clouding everything. And I do have a Band-Aid on my finger. I must have gotten stung. Okay, here's pollen trap stuff, cup, getting ready to assemble. That's the, what you want to call it, the top where the 7 mesh is that they go through that takes the pollen off the legs. You've got your bigger slightly below, but not enough to let drones and stuff down in. And then
So it's just big enough for the bee to fly through?
to fly through. And what's funny is with the 7 mesh, the queens at a diagonal before they're mated, if they're real good Aphis mellifera and real good Caucasian stock that matches out, they can go through diagonally sometimes because they're going down to the lower 4.7, upper 4.6 range. And, but that's maybe 1 in 100, 200 highs, big deal. But anyway, that's cutting stacks to put pollen traps together, looking at it. Okay, here's pollen trap together where you pull the draw out, and these are big draws. The front, we could pull out so they could go in the groove there on the bottom, which is the main entrance. You see that openness on the back. The draws there with the 8 mesh, we can, with the dry air, dehydrate more on its own with the bees circulating the air, which is where they got the thing in their minds for doing bottom screens out of the pollen traps, because you'd see mites falling down in with the pollen, and then we'd have to sift it on out to clean it, because Bruce didn't want to buy mites. Well, you mentioned it a few times. Anyway, so we have a bigger on the front, you close it off, it just, and then there's a little tiny notch in the center above in the back, if you look at it. About 3/8 of an inch, no more than a 1/2 inch. That's centered there, and that's a bypass. But it's a bypass so that when the hive itself wouldn't lose all its pollen. And since the first foragers of the day are mostly for pollen, while the second or third wave is more for nectar, they've got all morning to fly. If it takes them all day to get the pollen they want, they'll still do it. But you got a bypass there also. That bypass for the pollen acts as a bypass for drones and for queens for mating. So you don't have to worry about all those stupid queen escapes and everything else they tell you gotta buy, which you don't. Now here's a draw again without the screen on the bottom, so you can see more how it's made. Nothing hard. It's just simple square nailing. And then I don't think I've cut the lip on this one yet that I can see. But anyway, here's the front, see? I think I still got to cut a lip on that one. Okay, there's cut. See the cut there in the center for the bypass? But it's big enough to let drones out, it's big enough to let birds and queen out to come back and mate, and when they orientate, they do go through. And then the small virgins, before they expand, technically a queen on a diagonal can get through the 5 mesh screening, just like a worker bee carrying pollen loads on its, except that where the pollen gets raked off the legs, it doesn't with the queen don't have it, she's just going through. But either way, the queen will get in, get out, get mated, and then down below you see the bigger, that's a little bit, and that's down underneath it where we put it that others weren't, to keep the rats and skunks and other things out. They say, why are you doing that? Because we didn't want it. So everybody started putting screens underneath then, and then when we saw mites dropping down in, they said, oh, there's a tray. It became another thing for sales. And this is just pictures of what we were making. Okay, there's the draw. And it's got some tape down below, where I probably was fixing the draw, putting some screen over screens, so I keep the ornaments out. Okay, this is underneath looking in the main entrance to see the 2 different types of, here's the bigger, dropping down into the draw, and there's the smaller for sifting the pollen off. And then you can't have 7 up above because queens can't get through workers can't get through. You gotta have, 5, 7, 8 mesh for down below. And then you see me talk on the internet a lot of times about 5, 7 different mesh sizes for what the bees are flying through. But it's all your different aviation type wire we're used to keep chickens and different Cornish hens, doves and different things where they raise them and then use them for selling for food. There's another picture, because I take more than one in case so I'd have a backup. And there's the top. And all it is wire underneath, the same type wire up above, and then down the center, since it's about this wide across, so you've got more brace. There's a piece of wood there that's in, and then you just take a T50 stapler, staple it on. Nothing hard for making. Okay. Now I'm done with that. So that wasn't too bad for fun. Okay, here it is, making foundation. And this is in another building down there. And all I'm doing, I have a dipping board where I'll dip it into a dipping vat that I made out of anywhere from 15 to 30 gallon regular pails, you buy with a metal lid, like 55 gallons, you can buy 20 gallons, different gallons. And you'd have it with the smaller pail inside a larger pail, you put it up on brick with a heater from a hot water heater, the thing that goes in. And you double jacket it, wrap it with, back then you wrap it with asbestos, that's all they had. And then you just make your own dipping tanks, and you dip it. I'm cutting off around the sides, which is what I'm doing there right now, after I just dipped it, looks like. See, I'm cutting the next side, and you cut all the way around. And then the sheet just comes off because you're dipping it in cold water first, then you dip it in the hot wax like you dip in candles. And then you reverse the side, dip it again so it's level on both sides. You cut it around and you take it off. And that's all I'm doing, I'm taking the sheets off there. See, there's the dipping vat, see, it's just a barrel, with cold water, and brick on top. Those are just plain boards that I'm sanding with a hand sander, you know what I mean? The little electric square sander, I think I got one back there.
Do you need to soak those boards in cold water for a while, or just dip them?
Well, you might soak them for 5-10 minutes. That's why the brick is there, so when I'm embossing it, that's in the water, with the brick keeping it from popping out of the water bath. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm going down in.
How many times do you dip it?
Just twice. Do it, rotate it, look at the grain of the wax, and wax does have a grain when you dip it or you pour it. It's just like wood, it's got a grain, so you gotta learn how to read the grain on the wax. And then once I got the sheets off in stacks, plain, I say, here, Ed, cut, and you take a pizza cutter, put a template to the size we wanted to do, and he just cut around and makes to a different size. See what he's doing? He's just cutting it around. So I was making plenty of work for him. I was dipping while he'd be cutting. Then I take, go to the supermarket, get plastic baggies, whether they're white, plain, or black, whatever would be cheapest. And I'd cut them, and I could take a plastic bag, cut it in half, and it's like making sleeves, like on a card, you fold over, okay? There's the embossing roller in the upper left. I lay the sheet in, put some release agent, which was your biodegradable lemon, I think pledge they call it. But it has to say biodegradable, and you can find very few biodegradable anymore. Other than that, you have to use olive oil or your, just hot oil. Yeah, but it has to be biodegradable completely. And then it's only 2 drops in a half gallon of water, 2 drops biodegradable, but that's enough for release agent. Now, this is drawn out foam that was extracted going back in, but it's straight. Okay, there's a brood frame laid up, and I say it's a deep laid up wall to wall, top to bottom. They draw it out uniform, wall to wall, top to bottom, but there it is, small cell. And this is back in 84, 85, 92. There's bird home. See how bad it is? Well, you can see a few bees in between, but to me that's bad. Okay, here's being drawn out. Again, it's the whole sheet that's in, that's been wired. An I-5 wire, I don't 4 wire because I want more tension being in a warmer climate. And when I spin it, the faster you spin it, the more it can throw out the fresh drawn comb. But that's going in the brood nest and drawing it out, and with a template to follow. They got wax to use. They don't have to use their wax glands, so they can do it earlier in the spring, later in the fall, during season lulls. You're giving them work to do. And with enough honey in the hive and enough pollen and fresh brood coming out, they'll keep drawing wax 10 months out of the year. And they'll even do that up in Alaska. They might not do it 10 months, but they'll do it a good 6 or 8 months, and it freaks them out because they've never seen it done, hardly. That's in its uniform. They got a template to follow, and but you gotta have a template. The only thing is when they're off, when they're bigger. Okay, there's brood in the center, and there's honey around it. When I say there's a honey cap where they're filling in, okay, there's the honey cap, there's the brood in the center, and that's a frame that needs to be moved to the side, another drawn one put in the center so the queen can keep laying good. And if you push it to the sides and you got 3, you take one out that's full of honey. If you take 1 or 2 a box out of 20, 25 hives, you might come home with 3, 4 boxes of honey. You know what I mean? Or you can take the honey, put it up in the 4th box, start it, and but we learned with as many bees, we just take it home. You take 4 or 5 boxes, you do that daily. At the end of the week, you got 20, 25 boxes to extract. Okay, there it is again, brood, the honey, cap, nice and white. And look at that stupid bird phone. So see when you put the drones on the periphery?
Yeah, those little eraser caps.
But that's enough to have drones for mating, and if you do that on every frame, or even in the spring, you got plenty of drones for mating, and that's normal in nature, for seeing. They're going out home again. Oh no, they don't draw out small homes, it's not natural. We never have problems. Of course, we weren't that oversized yet. We did it. Ed had 5'4", I had 5'1" or 5'2", and when we put the outfits together, he had about 2 yards. He had about 50, 60 hives. I had closer to 500, but it came together, and he was good at mechanicking, he was good at cutting wood. So he cut wood and I nail, he fixed the vehicle, so I'd be in here dipping, doing he just spaced your own territory out. You've got to do that in life anyways. And then out in the field, we'd work with him on one row, me on the other, instead we talk back and forth across the rows. And, It works. Okay, here we go again, looking down from the top. And this is just a normal hive full of bees. You look at it, you want to gauge it, and say, that's good, and you just leave it. Here's a frame laid up with brood. Odd drone down the bottom. I don't know if that's drone in the center there. Over there, that's the bee's head or what. But that's a fully laid up frame. I guess I'm done.
Thank you.
Well, that's what I found. Other than that, it's just passing wired frames around so you can see how it's wired, and then showing Chris how to wire. But basically, all I'm doing is with the wrap and tie, you feed the wire through, and then you, instead of nailing it, you wrap it. And by wrapping it over and under with the extra wire at the top and bottom, you have the wire bust later, especially the tinsel type wire, versus the stainless steel that's a little bit harder. It lasts longer, but even stainless steel will bust. You've got extra wire on the sides about this length. So if you have to cut it and you loosen it that's on the frame, you just pull it back in, make a little loop, run it through, make a little loop, tighten it, pull it back out, wrap it around. If you've got enough to wrap around again for another repair job, and you can keep your frames good for 20, 25, 30 years, which is hard.
Dee, did you have any of the file folders or examples to show us your honey feeders?
Yeah, they're in the back here. I'll pass them around too.
Thank you.
Okay, let me go back. Because I'm going to pass the frames around while Chris is wiring.
I'm not wired.
Well, I'll show you what it looks
Chris,
like.
it sounds like you're wiring.
Because a lot of people haven't seen the wrap and tie